Today we're joined by Chris McKenna. He's a leading voice in helping families navigate the challenges of raising kids in a digital world.
Chris is the founder of Protect Young Eyes, a ministry dedicated to equipping parents with practical tools to protect their children online. He's testified before the U.S. Senate on digital safety, helped influence child protection legislation, and has worked alongside tech leaders, advocates, and policymakers around the world. Chris is also the author of 5 Habits of the Tech-Ready Family, where he gives parents a clear, practical framework to move from feeling overwhelmed by technology to raising confident, resilient kids who are prepared for the digital age.
But most importantly, he's a husband and a dad of 4, which is where his passion for his work really comes from. All right, let's get the conversation started. Chris, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, hi Jamie and Chris. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
We have really been looking forward to this conversation. And first of all, I want to say, this episode is going to be jam-packed with wisdom and with information. And don't worry if you get overwhelmed and you want to write everything down and can't keep up, because he's got a book. He's got a book that you're going to want to get. It's 5 Habits of the Tech-Ready Family, Raising Wise Kids in a Wild Digital World. And so I know, and Chris, if you open our book, it is highlighter yellow. You just want to highlight every single thing in there. And there's so much great information. And, as marriage counselors, one thing we know for sure is that there is a lot of stress in parenting. Raising kids, and that's just like the regular stuff. What activities are they going to be involved in? What are we making them for dinner? How are we going to discipline them? The rules. But then when it comes to technology, it's a whole different kind of parenting. And there's a lot of couples who aren't on the same page because some of them don't want to have this conversation. They don't want to talk about it. They struggle with phone use themselves. Yeah. They feel like, well, it's an impossible situation because what am I going to not give my kid a phone when everybody else has them? They feel kind of helpless in it. Or some are just so afraid and they bury their heads in the sand. But you have some answers and some wisdom to how to do that. And I love the structure of your book. And so I'm going to say that now, and I'm going to say it at the end. You want to get this book because you're going to need it, because this is the world we live in. So all of that being said, tell us about your ministry. Tell us about Protect Young Eyes.
Well, I wish I could take you everywhere I go and just let you give the spiel for the book, because I was like, preach it. Hey, thank you. That was amazing. And I'm humbled by that. I never expected to even have the opportunity. I'm on a journey I never expected to be on. The book is really just me saying, okay, and looking back and how God prepared me for this. I'm supposed to be a CFO at a company. I'm supposed to be a partner at Ernst & Young. I'm an accountant. That's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow.
My degree was in business. I went to Ernst & Young for 12 years, worked in business risk in sort of the Enron, WorldCom, Sarbanes-Oxley years of helping companies stay out of trouble. Loved that job. Fabulous. Got to travel the world, meet a ton of people. All the while, I had been volunteering in student ministry for a number of years. I had also been struggling and had come through my own addiction to pornography and kind of left that behind. And then the Lord opens up this opportunity to work in full-time ministry. Really? Leaving the business world to go into junior high ministry?
Little pay change.
Little bit. All the spreadsheets that I enjoyed, none of that made sense on any spreadsheet, right? And I went into that in 2009, and it's important to note that because you look at the time frame, the evolution of technology. I was in that ministry role from 2009 to 2016, and that's exactly when we unleashed the internet on childhood. We unleashed social media and smartphones on childhood. And story after story, which I know you probably read, just about what I observed in the students that I was doing ministry with. And so that was a problem. Looking back, being a consultant, I see problems. I like to fix problems. And the problem was parents were making, not because they were mean, but they were making uneducated decisions about technology. We all believe the techno-optimism of the early sort of golden age of tech, the smartphone. Everything was great and it was helpful for us. And Isn't it wonderful that you don't have to carry a digital camera and a Franklin planner and a Palm Pilot all at once? That it's, I just said a bunch of things that people are going, oh yeah, the BlackBerry, you know, all these things. We now had it all in one place.
Yeah.
And that at first seemed like an immense blessing.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and said, wait a minute. The adult version of me was helpless against pornography. What chance do my 12-year-old and 13-year-old 6th and 7th graders have with 100 million people in their pockets?
Yeah.
That was a terrifying thought to me. So I did some just education at our church, launched a website in 2015, and now find myself on this truly unexpected journey of helping families while also being a dad. Andrea and I have been married 26 years. We have 4 children, one who's a young adult, 21, off at college, and then 3 teen boys who are in grades 8, 9, and 10, and a set of twins in there. I have a son with Down syndrome. So I want parents to hear that I'm stumbling and bumbling through the digital age with you. I am doing the best I can, but I feel as though God has said, for such a time right now, get this information out in whatever way that you can because of what you've experienced, you know, looking at that business background of see problems, but also trying to mitigate risk. That's what my professional job was. And what I see is we have introduced an enormous amount of risk into childhood that we need to do practical things to do to bring that risk down. That's the whole point of Protect Young Eyes, the work we do in schools and churches, but then also why I wrote 5 Habits of the Tech Ready Family. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
There's the background.
I mean, yeah, it's great. It's a much needed ministry. Because like you're saying, there's a lot of risk, and I don't think people understand the risk. And well, you know that, you know, but I think we see that as well. They don't understand the apps. They don't understand what's out there. They don't understand how things are using and all that. And I think most parents just think it's screen time, right? Because that's what you hear. You hear, you limit the screen time. But that's not really where the real battle or the threat is, right?
Well, yes, and limit screen time. And so, you know, a real simple idea that I just want to put out there for everybody listening or watching this is, if the idea is technology in most of its forms is creating risk, which it does, you know, at the very high level, one of the very first slides that we put up in front of parents in our talks is all of the digital spaces where our children like to spend time were not designed with their thriving in mind. They were designed with our kids in mind, but not with their thriving in mind, because most of the digital spaces are built on a model of extraction and not benefit for us as humanity. And so whether it's YouTube Kids, Roblox, Minecraft, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever it is, I don't care that it says kids on the end of it. It was built on a business model that takes, because you didn't pay for it when you downloaded it. Therefore, you're the product. That's just business. That's what they are. So if that's true, then at the very highest level, we need to say no or slow more often to those digital spaces, because we think, yes, it's smartphones and yes, it's social media, but it's also smart TVs. How many do we have in our house? It's also tablets. It's anything. How many things? Make a list of all the things connected to the internet. And I just think overall, we need to be saying, do we really need 4 smart TVs in our house? That introduces too much risk. Maybe we just need 1. And I think we need to step back sometimes as families and just ask some of these bigger questions. And that starts with just simple ideas that create a foundation. I know that you probably, remember some of these ideas just around defining what our family values are, deciding just as a family what are some of the agreed upon guidelines we're going to have related to screen time, Chris, like you were saying. Maybe it's not just the kids and their screen time. Maybe it's where do mom and dad use their devices? How often are we on our devices? That gets into that first habit. So you're exactly right. The screen time discussion is pretty mature. We've even kind of started waking up to the idea that social media might not be great for our kids. It took us about 10 years. But what I'm really, really afraid of is that we totally are missing the big problem in the room, and that is artificial intelligence, that we're going to recommit all the same sins with a technology that is moving 100 times faster and is 100 times more insidious than what took us 10 years to figure out. So there's a lot there that we could probably unpack in this conversation, but that's why the education is important, why the conversations are important, why being a parent in the digital age just demands that this is a part of it. There's no passive parenting in the digital age. And that's not to put a bunch of pressure or shame or guilt or one more thing on a parent, because I know there are so many things. But I'm really honest with parents to say, if we're going to choose to have children in 2026, then what comes with that decision is intentionality around how they use their devices. That's just a part of the gig. But that's where we want to come in, find your trustworthy organizations, and I hope we could be one of those that helps alleviate some of that pain so that you can become more prepared instead of scared, because the news would convince us all that it's horrible and scary and horrendous. And I think we need to just find the people that we're listening to give us more of that calm.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens is people get paralyzed because it is scary and it's information overload and like it's overwhelming. And being someone in my 50s, like it's hard to learn new technology and new things all the time. And it's hard, like, you know, if we had small children at home, which we don't, like the idea of keeping up with all the apps and having kids who are probably smarter than you with technology, you know, and just that learning curve is so hard and it does get scary. And I think the reaction is just put your head in the sand and just, you know, it's too overwhelming. And so we get paralyzed and do nothing. But like you're saying, I mean, here's the downside of being a parent is you actually have to parent, you know, and that's the hard part, because some of this is talking to them about things that we really don't want to talk about, but it's also, this is the day we're living in. And so, you know, what I'm getting from you, it's going to be protecting our children, but also equipping them to live in this technologically advanced world. Is that right?
It is. And if we start at the right level, I think we have a better chance of being prepared instead of scared, a better chance at being confident instead of chaotic. And I want to pull on a thread that you just mentioned, and that is keeping up with all of the apps is overwhelming. You're right. Therefore, let's not start there. There's going to be another app next week, even after you figure out the one this week.
Yes.
And so if the way that you're attempting to stay confident in the digital age is to know all the apps and all of the ways in which they work, that to me is going to be a recipe for failure and anxiety. Instead, and this is exactly why I've structured everything that we do, whether it's live talks or how I wrote the book, it's at the principle level. The habits are principles, whether it's social media, whether it's pornography, whether it's gaming, whether it's artificial intelligence, or the thing that we don't even know yet. These 5 habits are principles that we'll be able to apply in order to feel more confident with that next technology, in order to have a child who has the right mindset around what happens when they encounter that new app we don't understand. Why? Because we've built digital trust with them, and we've said things out loud like, honey, there are going to be apps that we haven't talked about. Next week, there's going to be a new one that I haven't explained to you. It's impossible for us to keep up. But here are our family values. Here's what would happen if you encounter that app. Those are the principles, regardless of the new thing, that are true in our home. And if we keep pressing those things in over and over and over again, then I think we're starting at the right level. Does that make sense? Like, I think that's what's really important here.
Yeah, and it does. And so I would love for you to, 2 things, explain that digital trust, what you're talking about, but also I think it goes along with this. I remember reading in your book, you talked a lot about like grace first when we're parenting our kids. And it's like, does that combine with the digital trust that you're talking about?
Absolutely. It's as if you read it. So that's a beautiful setup. So thank you for that. No, and I don't even think you shared those two things together because of that. It's because they go together inherently. And so it's really beautiful how you set that up. So the second habit is to pursue authentic connection. And we talk about this concept of digital trust, which comes out of, I remember where I was sitting in the Whole Foods over in Chicago years ago when this idea of digital trust, as I was preparing for a presentation, came to me. So I spun up some slides and tested it on the audience I spoke with that night. They loved it. So now it's become this foundation. I love how the Lord does that sometimes of all the things that we do. That wasn't a promotion for Whole Foods. It's just where it happened. But so digital trust is step by step, chat by chat, brick by brick, these intentional moments that we have with our kids, dripping in little conversations. So one of the very best ways that we build digital trust, especially with maybe our tween and teen children, is to remember our posture in front of them in the midst of digital chaos, which is don't freak out, don't freak out, don't freak out, don't freak out.
Yeah.
Maybe a fifth one, don't freak out. And that is for us more than them, because in all the years that I've worked with young people, whenever they are found out or we're in the process of trying to discern whether or not there's something going on, whether they ask it or not, they're probably inside asking two questions. Number one, am I going to be okay? And number two, are you still okay with me?
Wow.
And if we're going to respond, not just in what we say, but with how our face looks in that moment, then we've got to practice ahead of time this concept of grace and then truth. Because we also have emotional centers, which are a big part of technology in young people, but it's also a big part of parenting that it's easy to respond in anger and disappointment when things get sent, snapped, clicked on that we don't want.
Yeah.
So one of the simple things I say to parents is if you believe that your child needs to have a smartphone or needs to have social media, then you just made it probable that they are going to make a mistake in a digital space.
Yeah.
Okay?
And if you
That's not their fault. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember raising when our kids were younger, we have 3 daughters. And so they do talk a little bit more. They would talk to mom a little bit more, car ride home or after school going through something. And I remember, because you're saying that, they would say something. And my instant reaction is to myself, control your face. Control your face. Don't, because I knew then, because if we do give these big reactions that shock, or that, what are you doing with that? You shouldn't have ever touched that. The likelihood of them coming back to you when they're in that time of need again is going to get slimmer and slimmer, because nobody wants to come and have this conversation where they're going to get yelled at first, or they're going to get judged or made to feel like they did something wrong, even if they did. But to meet them with that grace first and going, you know what, I want to be the one you come to when something happens online, if something drops into your inbox. I want you to come to me and know that it is safe and know that there's no judgment and know that I will be here to help you and guide you through that.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that you said
important.
Had offered, Chris, sorry about that. One of the things you'd offered earlier, just about your career, your risk management or risk mitigation, I think you said.
Yeah.
And how that flows into this idea. And it's still with what we do, is, with couples, because we're all involved, especially and with children, risk mitigation. This was something I did. It didn't work out well. So that's a high risk. That's now my brain indexes that as a threat, as a higher risk. So engaging with my parents, coming, forward with them when I've stumbled upon something that is unsavory, right? Those kind of things. It's no longer a comfortable thing or a safe thing to do. They've got to start to self-edit. And one of the things that you mentioned, that not only having to go through and have, and telling your kids this is what to do, but even actually to practice, to run through it So that way the kids actually get a chance to experience coming to you with something that they've discovered, and not just
Before it happens.
Yeah, before it happens. So it's not just in theory. It's something they actually got a chance to do and realize, hey, that kind of worked out. That was an okay thing to do. I know what to do in practice, not just in theory. So I really appreciate that you have done that in the past. And I just wanted to make sure that our audience has heard that as well, because we get good at what we practice.
Yeah, practice actually is one of the principles in Chapter 3, Habit 2, around pursuing authentic connection, because the best way to get into the mindset of calm, not only for us, but to show our kids exactly how to respond in situations, is to take what is abstract and make it concrete, especially for our younger kids, those listening who have been in childhood development or teachers and walk through Piaget and all of his brilliant research on childhood development, know that our youngest children move through stages of abstract and concrete thinking. And the younger the child, the more necessary it is to take abstract ideas and make them tangible, because they can't think abstractly yet. So to say to a child, when you see something that makes you uncomfortable, you see somebody without their bathing suit on, you see, even if you've started using the word pornography, I want you to come and tell me. Well, those are important words, but until you actually make that concrete, in the moment when the thinking part of their brain isn't governing their decision making and the limbic middle part of their brain is freaking out, they're going to wonder, wait a minute, am I going to interrupt mom right now? Am I supposed to? Am I going to get in trouble? And the enemy's going to make them feel horrible. So that's all what's going on. And without that practice, no, I have to put it down, pick it up, walk up the steps, knock on the door, because like shooting free throws or practicing a dance performance or playing the violin, I've done these things. That's how you make it concrete. That's exactly a tactic that we want parents to have in place. No question.
I love that. And, speaking of like the limbic brain and all that fun stuff, I think, and I'm sure you see this, that this is a big problem, is a lot of the apps, and even just, I think mainly if we could just say with cell phones, we give our kids, parents are giving our kids phones so early, but they're doing it for their own anxieties. They're doing it for themselves. And so they're living in that worry zone, in that anxious state of mind that I know you had mentioned in the book, the brief episode of your son going for a bike ride and coming back a little late.
Forgot his gab phone.
Yes. Things like that really trigger us as parents. And I know, with all the things that happen, horrific things happening in school, and parents are like, well, I want my kid to have a phone because I need to be in touch with them if something happens, even against the research showing they need their phones down so they can listen and know and focus on what to do. The parents still, we want the phones more than they do. So what do you have for those parents that have their own anxieties to deal with?
Well, I think each of those situations probably has a different set of solutions attached to it. So, the number one pushback that schools get, and I work with a lot of schools when it comes to having bell-to-bell phone-free policies in place, is what you've referred to. What do we do in active shooter situations? What do we do to get a hold of our kids? Well, then that's incumbent upon the school to do an emergency audit, make sure they have systems in place where parents clearly understand how to communicate, what the risks are with children, all having devices which create distraction, which create notifications, maybe alert the danger in the building as to where the kids are hiding. When you walk through these just practical reasons why, then I think some parents are more willing to let go and, buy into that idea. When it comes to our own anxieties at home, that's where we have to be really mindful about our own uses of technology, the doom scrolling. I would love to look at different parents who are listening to this. Just look at your Apple News feed, because your Apple News feed is actually algorithmically driven. So the news that you have in your Apple News feed, Jamie or Chris, is going to be different than mine because of what I've clicked on, what I've liked, what I've shared. Apple looks at that and sends different news differently to different people. Right? So that would be an interesting kind of social experiment. What are the things that you're clicking and tapping on that is feeding your own anxieties? And are those the things that are helpful? even just time of day. Are we mindful of when we're looking at technology? If the last thing we do right before we go to bed is to check the news, then I think we're setting ourselves up for a nighttime of anxiety that wakes up with anxiety. And, we need to be more mindful, which gets into that modeling as parents. The modeling of behaviors online is really important. Let's never forget, if the digital spaces that our kids like to spend time in were not designed with a thriving in mind, I should probably change that to be, they weren't designed with human thriving in mind. So the CNN landing page or the Fox News landing page or whatever it is you're looking at, that was designed to click. That is, click is what equals engagement. Whether or not it's exactly the title that describes what happened isn't really that important. Right. So let's never forget that this is the game of online spaces today. It's built on a model of extraction, whether you're 4, 14, or 40.
And bringing a faith component into that, I mean, that is feeding us to feel like we have control. We have control when we click, when we get that information, when we stay on top of this, when we get that, we feel like we're back in control. It's all a lie because it just keeps moving. And we're chasing it versus like we're being trained to trust ourselves and trust technology. And what does AI say? I mean, it is not going to be long at all before more people are going to AI before they're going to the Lord. I'm not going to take my prayer request to God. I'm going to take it to AI. And we just did an episode on that, just building this false intimacy with this AI bot, or whatever they are, but we're having a relationship where they're now talking back to us. And as adults, if we're falling into that, like we cannot expect our children to not fall into that trap. And even you had mentioned, I forgot the woman who had quoted it or did the study, but with Facebook, because you were talking about the, systems coming after, we're the product, and about how Facebook, they were targeting like 13 to I think 17-year-old girls with like low self-esteem and low self-worth. And they would find that if they would post the selfie and delete it, then they would send them to advertisers. And now all of a sudden they're getting all these beauty things. I find that as a woman in my 50s, you should see what my feed looks like. All the things to fix all the things that happen to 50-year-olds. And it's hard for me not to look at that and go, well, I want to be like that. I want to have that. And so, I mean, it really is set up for you to feel like you're in control when really it's in control. And so that's a hard thing to do, to navigate that, as parents. But I think it would be really hard to teach this to our children if we don't have control over this ourselves.
No question. No question at all. And that design, those intentional signals that were built in at Instagram, actually, that Sarah Wynne Williams spoke about in her Senate testimony back
that's
in
who it was.
2025. Those signals are just a taste of what's behind the curtain. The intentionality that, you're right, sort of says, well, you maybe get the feeling that you're in control, but all the while it sort of feels like you're the puppet on strings.
Yeah, it's so short-lived.
There's this puppeteer up there named Meta or named, TikTok or named YouTube or whatever it is that's an algorithm really trying to feed you the most addictive version based on the way you've clicked on things or tapped on things, the most addictive version of that to keep you going. So you're exactly right. You mentioned that use of AI and chatbots and companions. In 2025, the number one use of AI, it wasn't writing emails or answering questions. The number one use was therapy and companionship.
Wow. Because there's a need there. Because we're made for relationship.
We are. And we are as adults. Yeah. But our tweens and our teens, like, as my friend Dr. Jim Winston says, who runs a lab down at UNC Chapel Hill, the feeling to connect, the need to connect with others is as strong a feeling as hunger to the adolescent brain. Wow. It's survival level instinct.
Wow.
And let's be real. I mean, as a former middle school youth pastor, I can say this with confidence. Middle school has enough drama.
Yeah.
Friendships are hard. Boyfriends and girlfriends are difficult. There's friction and all that. Imagine a sycophantic version of a boyfriend or a girlfriend that compliments you all day long.
Yeah.
That anthropomorphically looks and feels and sounds, been trained. When you put it down and then come back to it, asks what you had for dinner, relates to what it did while you were gone.
Cares about you is what they're believing.
Cares about you. The upgrade version then even will send me sexy selfies during the day, will call my phone. This is a type of friendship that a lot of us, if we're really, really honest, if you were lonely or depressed, maybe you moved a lot when you were a child, so friendships were fractured here and there, that version of a friend sounds pretty darn attractive.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even as adults, I mean, taking it back into, I don't know, it's the real world, but as adults, right, that's one of the doors that open up to affairs, right? Where you get the work companion who's showing the attention that we've stopped getting at home. And, you know, and you mentioned as well as, you know, as far as not just adults, but with kids, you know, that's even more so, I guess, you know, is asking, do I matter and am I loved? And technology's stepping in, but I guess if you could explain how it's stepping in that parents might not realize.
Well, so that question of am I loved is a question that our tweens and teens and our children are asking, not always verbally, but with their hearts. They're asking that question, and that's that middle part of the brain that is on fire during adolescence, where God created us to want to connect with others in relationship, right? We were created in Trinity relationship. We demand relationships for thriving. That's just the way we are in the flesh with each other. And we know COVID was a perfect sort of laboratory for this, that digital connection is not a replacement for human connection. Yeah. We were more connected than ever during COVID, connected, and yet we came out of that lonely and desperate for relationship in person with each other. Yeah. There's something about the physical nature. And so, you know, that's really the core of this. You know, when I'm in front of churches and faith audiences, you know, God could have snapped his fingers from heaven to save humanity, wave a magic wand, and it could have all been made right. But there was something about him becoming man in the form of Christ, in person, in the flesh, incarnate with us, that I don't even understand why, but there was a divine significance to that being the form of God in the world with us. That then through the cross and resurrection and salvation, right, that the incarnate, you know, version of him and the physical in-person relationship with us, that's just the way we're wired and created to be. And so everything that shows up that mimics and fakes intimacy, fakes connection, fakes friendship is a rupture to that which we know is real. And that is human to human connection. And what's, you know, beautiful about that is you find agreement on that even in non-faith-based, non-Christian circles. You know, I've spent time with Jonathan Haidt and others' secular humanist point of view. I was at the World Economic Forum for 2 years in a place that is mostly godless, where we still found common ground with psychologists and doctors and world leaders and, you know, wonderful humans like Jonathan Haidt and Tristan Harris and others who agree that human to human connection. Now, they believe it mostly from an evolutionary and sort of tribal point of view. I believe it, as we do here on this podcast, from a different created point of view. But isn't it beautiful that both sides are pointing to the same truth, which is human to human connection really matters. And that's what we have to be showing our children over and over and over again, that's what makes us thrive.
Yeah. And so is that part of the fix? Because now it's like, let's get into like, what do we do? And the first thing I'm thinking, you know, hearing you say all this is we've got to start being like connected families again. And having like the phone-free family dinners and talking with our kids and parents getting our own, you know, eyes up off the phone and just having more face-to-face engagement with each other in the family. Like, I would imagine that's probably pretty impactful.
No question. So let's just put out on the table, ironically, the idea that no dinner time should ever have devices.
Yeah.
At the table. So, but I'll also point toward there are, I believe, really simple, what I call micro moves that we can make as parents in order to just start orienting ourselves more in this direction. One of the examples that I give in chapter 2, which is habit 1, based on something I wrote a couple of years ago titled "Busy People Don't Have Epiphanies." That was a post that I wrote years ago, right? Because just put that out there. When do you, whoever, either of you can answer, Chris and Jamie, when do you have your best ideas?
In the shower. In
Right?
the shower, driving in the car, going on a walk.
Driving in the car, going on a walk, weeding the garden. I used to have an executive coach who said, Chris, we're not going to have a Zoom call. I want you to go for a walk and then call me.
Wow.
Because he knew that there was something different. And I do too. I'm a runner. I love being out in the country. I don't ever run with headphones, mostly because people are more distracted than ever driving. So I have to make sure I'm focused on the road. But I also love the peace and the quiet. That's where the Holy Spirit speaks.
Yeah.
I come home with a lot of ideas. Okay, all of that to say, let me give you a micro move. The next time you go to the grocery store, I don't care if you have 2 things or 200 things. Hopefully you don't do this with 200 anyway. Always choose to go through the line that has a human. Do not go through the automated checkout line.
Yeah.
Why? Because I think that shows your children that human-to-human connection matters. It also shows the person there that's checking you out, who maybe is some teenager who had a bad day, that you smile, you care about them, say hello. The kinds of conversations that I've had, a simple example here, there was one that I noticed over and over again. You know, we live in a small town, so you kind of get to know the people that work at the D&W in town. And then she got a job at the Speedway down the road, and I saw her, and they're like, hey, looks like you got a new job. And she appreciated that I remembered, and then have this conversation at the gas station. Simple. Like, that's a micro move to look at that. And to be honest, most humans in the world are pretty nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Our news feeds would convince us otherwise. And there are dumpster fires in a lot of places. But I'm convinced that most people are pretty nice. And so
I agree.
Instead of this idea, don't talk to strangers, teach your children in a responsible way what it looks like to talk to some strangers, to mimic that and show them. That's just real simple. I've got, a whole bunch of them, but I mean, I'm talking about micro moves that model for our children the ways that we want them to exist in the world.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love the whole talk to strangers mentality. Being Gen Xers, growing up, like the real threat, and I believe you mentioned this in the book too, was that we were going to get kidnapped. We were going to get grabbed off the streets, things like that.
That's
and
right.
It was, stranger danger kind of stuff. But now, and I think it's hard for people our age raising kids, of that, technology age, to kind of turn that aspect off. And it's like the people by and large are not the danger. The phone is. What's behind the phone is. And so the threat has changed on us, but I don't know as if we're wrapping our minds around that so much. So I love that idea of like, let's get back to talking to people and having friends and engaging and getting couples to go out together, families to do things together.
Yes. Agree. Amen. Yep.
Because part of your point too is you don't need to do like all 5 habits right away. It's like you said, these micro changes start someplace, and with that one micro change is one that you mentioned. But I guess what's another one, right? That we'd want to make sure that sets the ground. Or what's
the foundation?
The foundation. Thank you.
You're close.
That sets a foundation that if parents don't do it, they might regret it in 5 or 10 years. Because you mentioned like we had to deal with things that we didn't have to deal with 10 years, before.
Sure.
And so I was just thinking ahead, what's something that maybe we need to start being prepared, diligent, intentional.
So I think we could pick a phrase, and I give a phrase in the book. And it's sort of based on, right, in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy 6:5-9, the Shema, right after Moses reminds the Hebrews, hey, remember these 10 commandments? Remember this thing God did for us, back in Exodus? Right after that, we get these beautiful instructions, which to me are the playbook for parenting. Now, it doesn't go into all the tactics. I wish sometimes it gave a little more detail. But the Lord also spoke in a lot of principles, which is beautiful. And that's where we read, what do you do to remind kids that, I am God? What do you do when you walk, when you talk, when you lie down, when you get up? Bind it on your hands, put it on the door frames of your house and on your gates. In other words, even before we knew the words, God was saying, be an algorithm to your children if you want them to know how good I am. I want that to be a playbook, because here's the thing. I feel as though if that's what God said, this is the playbook for parenting, Silicon Valley has mimicked our playbook by putting algorithms in their pockets to say things over and over and over and over again that are not good and honorable and excellent and praiseworthy. So they've actually copied what God designed, and that's TikTok is basically Deuteronomy 6:5-9 in a distorted way. Now, that aside, that means we have to be more persistent and consistent with certain words and phrases and ideas. But it doesn't have to be elegant. It doesn't have to be a PowerPoint. They don't have to clap when you're done. And I think we get overwhelmed with it has to look and feel a certain way, and I have to have all this research. No, literally, you're driving down the road. You pull up to a stop sign. You turn the radio down. You look at your kid and you say, you know what, man, technology is everywhere. I try to control as much as I can. Amazing son, amazing daughter of mine. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, whether you do it or someone does it to you, you can land safely and softly with me. Turn up the radio, keep driving.
Yeah.
That's a porn talk, that's a predator talk, that's all the talks wrapped into one. And I want parents to say little things like that to our kids so often that they're rolling their eyes and finishing our sentences.
Yeah.
If your child isn't just a little bit annoyed that you're saying it again, then you're not saying it enough. That, to me, is reclaiming the spirit of Deuteronomy 6:5-9 that was intended for our parenting and not further digital devices. So, again, it doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be beautiful. You can even kind of fumble through it a little bit, but pick a phrase, say it, practice it, use it, and do it over and over and over and over again, right? That's not the overwhelming feeling of understanding the new app or all the things we kind of started the conversation with. It's building that. You asked what builds the foundation. Relationship builds the foundation. Then we can build the more stressful things on top of that, like the right router and like the right filters and all the other things. But man, let's get that relationship right first.
Yeah, so it starts, this is like a heart issue as well, and the priority. And, there was something, you wrote how short-term comfort doesn't equal long-term well-being.
Yes.
And I think we want to, that short-term comfort, that may come in, I don't want to upset my kids, so I'll say yes to them. May come in, well, this is uncomfortable for me to have this conversation, so I'm not going to say it. My kids are going to roll their eyes. They're not going to listen. I'm not going to say it. We've got to get past that. We've got to get past that and do the right thing anyway. Even if our kids aren't happy with us, even if they are annoyed with us, because we're here to raise adults.
Yes.
We want to raise healthy adults, and we want their long-term, we want their mental health to be good, because that's a topic we didn't even talk about, how damaging, all this technology is for mental health, especially in youth. And so we've got to look at the long-term and go, and then play the movie backwards. Here's where I want my kids to end up.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do to get them there? And it kind of needs to stop mattering how comfortable or uncomfortable it is for us as parents.
Yeah, you're referring to that phrase that we've posted a couple of times, which is we need to be more concerned about their long-term wellness or eternal destination than their current happiness. Because here's the problem. Most parents want their kids to be happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do too. You do and I do.
Yep.
The problem is dopamine makes kids happy. And every device is a little dopamine slot machine. So it feels like you're doing the right, it's almost a weaponization of our good intent in giving our kid that device a appears to be giving them exactly what they want. But as you said, we've traded wellness for happiness, when long term, that's not what contributes to their thriving. That's not what contributes to their resilience. That's not what contributes to them figuring out how to deal with a hard coworker or a difficult relationship, or all, not everything is 7-second dopamine loops in life, right? Let's be honest.
Right.
So true. So true.
I wish.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm gonna shift up just a little bit, because look, this is really great information, and it's definitely love a lot of the principle stuff, and I think it's wise, because like you said, even biblically speaking, it's the principles, because there's so many different applications that can come from the principles. But speaking of an application, and being grandparents ourselves, we do have a grandson who enjoys Fortnite. And I've heard it mentioned, and I know some of the pitfalls and things like that, but I guess just because it probably is common to other types of multiplayer online things, what are some of the things that parents need to be weary of, protective of, vigilant of, and things like that, but specifically Fortnite?
Yeah, specifically Fortnite. And I noticed you used the word pitfall in there, which for Gen X guys like you and I then goes back to the Atari 2600 days. I see what you did there. My parents still have one that works, by the way, if you blow on the cartridges just right.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. But, we are not an anti-gaming organization. Some are. I play some video games with my kids. My 16-year-old son, who has a friend who lives across town, actually does dabble a little bit in Fortnite. Here's what I'll say, and then I'll specifically talk about Fortnite, is whether it's Roblox, Minecraft, or Fortnite, those are the big three, right? Every single yes to one of those games or gaming universes, because actually Fortnite is a gaming universe. Roblox is a gaming universe. It's not like the old cartridges we remember, which was one game.
Yeah.
Right.
It was Frogger. It was Pac-Man. It was Galaga. It was one game. These are universes that in some cases, like Roblox, have millions of games. Okay, so I just kind of put that out there just as a piece of education. Every time we say yes to one of those highly engineered games, we are saying yes to some element of friction in our family. That's just a given. So we have to first ask ourselves, do we have the calm and the fortitude to handle a little friction in our family? Because that's what it's going to bring. There are some children who will turn into a rage-filled alter version of themselves when you decide to take the screen away. Now, number one, if that happens, then that's not the right game or screen for your kid, because their neurology is rebelling against whatever you put in front of them. So as parents, if we're going to not expose them to that, we need to take it out of their life. That's just a given. But like for my 16-year-old son, who we said yes and to some Fortnite, it came with some caveats, which number one, it was never played on a mobile device. It was always on the PC that we have here in my office. It was always in public on my couch with the sound on, never any headphones. And it was only with my permission. So these are the sorts of things. In fact, I come into the room when he plays from time to time, and I'll talk so that his friend knows I'm listening. I'll say hi, and I'll say his name, and I know him and his family really well, right? So like these are just some of the ways. If Fortnite introduces an element of risk into my son's life, which it does, then those are some of the micro things I'm doing to mitigate that risk down to a spot where it's acceptable to me. Right? So those are the things. It can't just be yes, because today's games bring so much intelligence and intentionality and engineering behind them that we never experienced on the NES, the Sega, the Intellivision, whatever we played. Today's games are radically different. And so kind of the way that I even sort of conclude in the book is just never take any of today's video games lightly. Never take them for granted. Do your research, do your homework. I'll be honest, with Roblox, if there was one that I could just snap my fingers and get out of childhood altogether, it would be Roblox. That game just brings so much risk and addiction and just proven harm that I would love to get rid of it altogether. And parents are generally unclear about some of the risks that Roblox has, which is why I feel so strongly about it. But that's to your Fortnite question specifically. Those are some of the things we've done in my family with my son to bring that risk down to a spot where it has been acceptable to us.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And, our son-in-law plays video games, but it's amazing how he does it. He's got a group of core friends that live across the states, and late at night, 10 o'clock at night, after everything's done, he'll go play, and he engages in community with these people, and they have community outside of the game. And so they've made that work. They have these boundaries, that are on it. And so it's like, it's not always about get rid of all the games and you can't do anything. You can't ever have a phone. You can't do any of that. But it's seeing that there are real threats to them.
There are.
And learning how to put those boundaries in place. But I think in all this talk, which, I'm going to, again, encourage you, this book is coming out, The 5 Habits of the Tech-Ready Family. You have to go get this book. You're going to get more details. There's no way we could possibly cover all the goodness that's in here. So you have to get the book. And I want people to use your resources, which I want to have you wrap up with. But I think all of this, it sounds like what we need to do, the most important thing we need to do is get back to that foundation of family and of engaging one another and not being so caught up and, here's our schedule, here's what we're doing. Kids are off in their rooms, on their phones. We're completely disconnected, where it's like when we're home, let's start learning how to be home.
Together.
And be together, and let's have the family game nights again. Let's have the conversations. Let's have the dinners without technology. We tell that to couples all the time, and I will even go there and say, Mom and Dad, this is on you. It's going to be real hard to ask your kids to do something that you're not willing to do and model yourself.
Have it one.
Right. That's right. And so,
that's right.
But the way, like to your point, God designed us for relationship and bare bones that starts in our own home under our own roof. And so don't be afraid to be uncool to your kids. They do want to know they're loved by you. They do want to know they're accepted and that you approve of them. They may not, like you said, ask for that directly, but we all have that longing. And so as parents, we need to engage them when they're kind of unengageable and when they want to isolate, where we need to lean in and go, you know what? Hey, let's talk about your day. What's going on? Let me get to know you and, your friends and your life and all of that. So we
need
have
to take
to get,
the lead.
like, re-engaged and
Includes dads too.
yes, and not
Amen.
being afraid to parent again and be the parent and be the one who gets our own anxieties and our own, phone life under control. And so that is so foundational. And I totally agree that if people get the heart right in this and the priorities right in this, the other stuff, like you said, well, we can find out which apps to have, which not, and what are doing what. That's all secondary. But foundationally, it's because if we build all, you can't have a phone, but we never make a heart connection with our kids, they're going to rebel and they're going to sneak on that phone. They're going to find a phone and they're going to do all the stuff. And so it's that all, I appreciate that you said that stuff is kind of secondary, and it's also ever changing. But what doesn't have to ever change and what shouldn't is going back to that scripture, teaching our kids all the time. So I think that is great. And that's a tremendous foundation to build on top of. So with that being said, that's the number one thing I think the three of us want you to get from listening to this. But now you're going, okay, got that. So now what can I do? Do you have things, and I haven't looked enough. Do you have stuff where like moms or parents could do this as groups, like go through your book or go any resources like that?
Yeah, so I think it orients itself pretty naturally for that, given that it's
that's what I was
5
thinking.
habits and the way that it breaks up into like a 5 to 7 week study. And there will be, there are those summaries at the end of each chapter.
Yeah.
And we also, when the book gets a little closer on the website, techreadyfamily.com, there will be discussion questions that will accompany that. Anybody could just come together, do a book study. It's super easy because it is really difficult being the only parent on no Snapchat island. And so to come together, to come together to have this discussion and to figure these things, or no Fortnite island, whatever island you're on right now.
Island.
And so to come together to have that discussion in community is really critical. And, beyond that, for the tactical, for the practical, the Chris, hey, how do I set up this new iPhone? How do I turn on filters for my smart TV? All of that stuff has been on our website for years. It's free and available. Just go to protectyoungeyes.com, go to all of our device guides, whether it's a Chromebook or a PlayStation or an Xbox or an iPhone, whatever it is. Step by step, we show you how to apply those layers of protection that we talk about in the book in Habit 5. Understanding the apps, whether it's the new AI applications, companions, whatever it is, that's all on our website. So please, when you feel as though you have the confidence to go and learn some more of those details and you're in a spot where you can absorb some of that, we've put it all in one place for you. We've done that work, and that's exactly how we want amazing, parents and grandparents to use it. So we want to be a bit of that Swiss Army knife wherever you find yourself, whether you're, parenting younger children and want to just filter as much of the junk out as possible, or you're more in that relational tween and teen phase, how to have those conversations. That's where we want to be to help as many families as possible. So
I love it.
Fantastic.
I love that you provide all that stuff. And we don't
Huge
want
blessing.
parents doing this out of fear. We want them doing it because they want God's best for their children.
Yes.
And so I think that's it's tremendous. And so is there any last thing that you don't want to leave without the people knowing this?
I want everyone that watches or listens to this to know that you are uniquely ordained to lead your children in the digital age.
Amen.
Your knowledge of technology doesn't dictate your ability in this space. That this is the job that God has prepared you for. You have digital superpowers, and I just want to show you where they are, to maybe initiate this realization that you do have them. And that's why we want to take care of the practical and give you this sort of framework so that it can activate like nitrous to an engine. It can activate that wonderful ability that God has already placed inside of each and every one of you listening to this. And I firmly believe that. That's not just words and marketing. Like I've seen it happen over and over again, where a grandmother came to me and said, oh my gosh, I did this and had this conversation with my granddaughter, and boom, that I've seen it happen over and over again. And I think it'll be true for your audience too.
That
That's
is awesome.
fantastic.
That is a great encouragement. Well, Chris, we have so enjoyed this, and
Huge pleasure.
we could have talked much, much longer.
Me
But
too.
we do want to respect and appreciate your time. So we truly, truly appreciate you joining us. And go get the book. We're going to have all the links to Protect Young Eyes and to Chris's new book in our show notes, so you can grab that. And we really encourage you to make use of both of those incredible resources. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Chris.
My pleasure. Thank you.